Good morning. Thank you very much again for joining our forum today. As usual, we would have a couple of updates and then we would see if there are questions for any of the members of different offices who are available here. One reminder, after this forum, we have one more in October. And typically November and December, we don't have meetings because the dates are right around the holidays. So with that, let's dive into what we have to talk about. Francisco, I know that you needed to go to another meeting. Do you want to start with your update, please?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Ahmad. Okay. Can everybody see a screen with cutoff dates?
Yes.
Kuali?
Yes.
Okay. I was asked by Aggie Enterprise leadership to give a reminder to everybody and to ask them to start communicating this information through your staff, because there are some people asking about these dates. Okay, so the last day for UCD Office of Research in A&R contracts and grant to send CGA awards and amendment is November 17, 2023. Okay, and the reason that happens to be a Friday. And the reason for that is that Monday will be the last day for CGA to create new sponsor awards or process new amendments. At 8 o'clock that day, the option that CGA uses for creating new sponsor awards or processing amendments will be shut down. Okay. In a previous presentation, I had given some recommendations of things that can be done to minimize the impact of this. Okay. And if I remember correctly, that presentation was the one that I did in the month of June. Okay. And if you don't have it, please let me know and I will gladly send you a copy of it. The last day to create new expense account for sponsor awards is November 21st, 2023. Okay. The reason for that is that the following day, we will start migrating the data to Oracle. Okay. And remember, each expense account associated to a sponsored award will be created in Oracle as a project. Okay. And the number of awards that we have to migrate is approximately 6,000, and the number of projects that need to be created are over 18,000. So therefore, it will take some time, and then afterwards, the information has to be reconciled. The last day for departments to process sub-award invoices in Kuali, fully approved, including CGA's approval, if it is necessary, is December 11, 2023. Okay. After that date, any payment to sub-awardees will be done in Oracle starting in January. The last day for UCD Office of Research in A&R contracts and grant to send CGA sub-award contracts to process in Kuali is December 13, 2023. After that date, the option to create sub-awards will be turned off, and CGA will not have access to that. The last day for departments to process payment requests in Kuali, fully approved, including CGA's approval if necessary, is December 22, 2023. And the last day for department to process cost transfer using a GEC, fully approved, including CA's approval if necessary, is January 4th, 2024. It will be greatly appreciated if the participants in this forum start disseminating this information within your units. Because some of the participants in UAT have communicated to the leadership that they don't have any idea what the cutoff dates are. Okay. Any questions?
Francisco, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Actually, Ahmad, this is kind of for you too. So for new awards during this, I'm just going to call it a blackout period between November 17th and January 1st.
Yeah.
Sometimes an award, for example, the begin date would be contingent upon signature execution. So will sponsored programs still be executing awards during that blackout period?
Yes, we will. It doesn't affect sponsored programs. So we will still be signing awards and processing them in Cayuse. Cayuse is not going down. Cayuse does not have a blackout period. So sponsored programs will be business as usual. It's just that the feed to CGA will have a blackout period.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. So, Bill, what will happen in those cases is, as Grace explained, the feed will be suspended. But once the governance board of Aggie Enterprise gives the go-ahead for CGA, the feed will go in for all those awards, and all those awards will be set up.
Okay, so Francisco, so really, does that mean though that even though the award's executed, there's no mechanism for the researchers to actually start spending?
And that is why one of the suggestions that was given was to request an advance account for those awards.
Francisco, let's be very careful about what we are talking about, advance account. We would be able to approve advance accounts only if the requirements of the UCOP policy is met. So it's not enough to say that, well, it seems like we would get an award. We have to have a solid evidence that the award is, is going to come in, like we do right now. So in other words, during that period, if we receive a request for advance account and we don't have enough foundation to allow that, it won't happen. So we have to be very careful about that, because that question has come to me that, for example, if the PI knows that he's expecting to get an award in, let's say, mid-November, can they ask for advance account? No, the answer is no. I mean, unless if we have solid evidence, again, following OP's policy, that we would have the award. So that's very important issue. I see in the chat there is a question regarding proposals. Again, as Grace said, the functions of sponsored programs are not going to be changed, except for the fact that awards are not going to be electronically sent to CGA during the quote unquote blackout period. So yes, we would do proposals, they would get reviewed, they would be sent out, and business as usual. But if the award comes in, we would work on the award, we would finish it. However, accounting would not hear about that.
I just had a quick comment because I think in June you guys had suggested to create like a department research default account. So to answer Bill's question, like I thought the suggestion was just you basically create a department account and put research expenses on there that you could transfer once we roll into enterprise. So I know for like my departments, we did that just in preparation. If an award is within that blackout period.
Thanks for the suggestion. That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's correct. The department can use their discretionary funds to fund these things and move, make the transfer when the system is available. Then that's again, we are not a part of that. Sponsored programs is not a part of that.
That's correct. And that was one of the suggestions that was given. That if there is no way to comply with UCAP's requirements about setting up in advance, another way to do it would be to set up an account. And once the award is set up, transfer the expenditures to that account. Okay. Somebody asked, is there a link where you can get the slide? Yes, there is. It will be provided to Office of Research, and Office of Research will publish it.
And also maybe I'm considering also maybe at the end, sometime later today, we would put that on the listserv too. So we would get it from different directions. And I know Perry would put it on somewhere in our system. But we can add this specific slide to a message on the listserv too. So you can get it that way.
James, would you be can you look at a question from Cindy Bray? And look at, can you answer it?
I'm reading it right now.
Okay.
Within the, yeah, Cindy, I would go ahead and create a new account on the existing fund. We can tag it so that we understand it's kind of a, we're going into a very interesting period here with our transition to Aggie Enterprise. I think we need to accommodate situations as best we can without breaking any rules. But what you're describing, Cindy, is not an uncommon situation we've had with some of our, especially our flow through agreements, where we know there is additional funding coming. We can't shut those projects down. You can't you can't turn the project off, really. So we need to keep it rolling.
Ashley, you have a question.
Yeah, my question is more for James, I think, but it sounds like we will only be able to do journal vouchers to move expenses. And that sounds like something that sponsors will feel we've kind of gone backwards rather than forwards when they're auditing accounts. Do we have a plan for how we're going to address that? And is that a concern for you, or do you not think that that's going to be an issue?
I mean, we need to explain to any auditor, this is a huge monumental transition we're doing between our systems. We've got all of our changeover stuff is being documented by the Aggie Enterprise folks and my folks. I don't really have a great deal of concern. It's kind of a one-time deal where audits, where cost transfers are problematic in audits is when they're just recurring and we're just we got costs going in and out of accounts going every which way. Francisco, you're sharing your email. You might want to not.
Oh,
and I don't know, maybe you want to. I don't know. But actually, does that help a little? I mean,
Well, I was more thinking for Aggie Enterprise in general. If the GEC function is going away and journal vouchers are our only option to transfer, to make transfers, then in all future audits, I mean, I just see that being a concern for auditors when it's just a journal voucher rather than an identifying a specific expense that we're moving to another account.
Francisco, can you speak to the transfer functionality in Aggie Enterprise? And because you're way more up to speed with all the nuances in there than I am.
Ashley, first of all, that entry would be in Kuali, and Kuali is not shutting down if you need to look up transactions that occur there.
No,
Okay.
I mean for future things in Aggie Enterprise. So say a new grant that we get in January, we're going to start in Aggie Enterprise. And I've talked to supply chain management and they've said, once the PO is closed, there is no way to move that expense to another account. And that a journal voucher is the only way to move specific expenses. So I'm just wondering, for auditing purposes, is that going to give auditors what they want?
Okay. First of all, when you move a transfer in PPM from one project to another, the audit trail will be behind that transaction. So you will always be able to go back to the original transaction. You don't have to necessarily do a journal.
Okay.
Then there are some exceptional cases where you might do a transaction in the GL and it really has to go to PPM. But this is questions more of detail of the functioning of GL and Aggie Enterprise. I'm willing to set up a time with you to discuss it, Ashley, okay? Because I was just given 5 minutes to do this,
Got it.
okay?
Yep, thanks.
You know my name, and you can get my email address, and I'm more than willing to answer your questions and actually show you how it's done, okay? And that goes for everybody else that is in the forum,
Thanks, I appreciate that.
okay? Any other questions? Any other comments?
Yeah, I guess I had one more follow-up question to the the point I made earlier about having a department account.
Yes.
I guess in the Change Network meeting last week, it was unclear how UC Path transactions would be, like the direct retro function is going away. And so if we're putting expenses on a department account in December, how are we going to transfer those things to the award account when it's actually set up in Enterprise? Is that going to have to be a JV or
No.
Because will I be able to process a salary cost transfer from a Kuali account? You know, going back to like when we were using Kuali and then to Enterprise, I guess is my question.
You would be able to do basically a direct retro.
Okay.
And that will keep all the information. And Corey, if you want to discuss this further, I'm more than willing to do it, because I got to get back the meeting to Ahmad, because he has something that is, I think, more critical and more urgent than this.
Okay. I will send you an email. Thank you.
Please do. I'm more than willing to do it. And with Ashley and anybody else that wants to go through it. And if you want to see it, we'll work on it.
Okay. Thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you, Francisco.
I'll stop sharing.
Okay,
And
good. Thanks. So Francisco was talking about something really important. I guess everybody knows that at the end of Saturday, the fiscal year of the government ends. And if something magically doesn't happen today, tomorrow, or Friday, there would be government shutdown. And the question is, what's going to happen? So this is obviously nothing new. Some of you probably know that since 1981, we have had 14 shutdowns. And here I put the dates in here and the number of days. Most time they have been 1-2 days and so on and so forth, but then there have been some recent ones. The most recent one in 2018 was 34 days. So there is a major consequence to if there is a shutdown and the government funds are not available. So let me stop this. You don't want to keep looking at this, but it's interesting. There are, I mean, in between 81 and 87, there were lots of them back to back when President Reagan was in the office, most of it because of the fact that apparently, I mean, what happened was that House and Senate were in different controls. And that's what's happening now too. So I don't know what would happen. But again, none of us have any control over that. And the consequence of all of that is what we would see, which basically government would not issue new awards. There won't be amendments, supplements, and so on and so forth. Individuals who are getting their pay directly from federal government. I'm not talking about if they are on, like, let's say, NSF, NIH awards that we have. I'm talking about, like, there are members of, let's see, there are a couple of entities who pay directly to their employees, and the employees are here on campus. USDA is the prime example. As long as the shutdown is going on, they won't get paid. Then the proposals would go to the agencies. Typically, we haven't heard from like grants.gov saying that they would shut down the system. In the past, they didn't. They would get the proposals, but they won't forward them to the sponsoring agency. So any project that relies on working on the federal government in federal government facilities would not have access to those federal governments. So we do have projects that fall in that category. So the bottom line is that during that period, somehow, the campus has to continue working. The PIs are supposed to meet all of the deadlines of their awards. They can't stop working. If there is an award, let's say from NIH, NSF, or whichever federal agency, they have to keep working on them. And at one point, hopefully, the money would come in. So you have all seen the announcement from Provost's office, which came out, I believe it was dated August 28, and I put it on the listserv on August 29. There is no updated information on that, but if the shutdown would go in effect, I'm sure that campus leadership would give us additional directions. So that's where we are. I don't know if there are going to be questions. I see that Denise is putting a message in the chat. Denise, do you want to talk about this?
I mean, I don't have too much more to share than what you shared, Ahmad, until we know for certain the shutdown is going to occur and agencies start posting updated guidance. Jeff and Mary and I are monitoring it. We'll have a message ready to go as soon as we know whether or not the shutdown is going to occur. And it will include information on the topics you mentioned in terms of what to do if you receive a stop work order, what to do if you are receiving your salary direct from the federal government. So more information will be forthcoming as soon as we know for certain what the guidance is from the federal agencies.
Thank you, Denise. Again, the campus or the system, UC system, has gone through this, as I showed you on the list of shutdowns. So the system is prepared, but there would be obviously some issues that we all have to deal with. This morning, I received a message from sponsor of an agreement we just signed like 2 weeks ago. They remind us that they would not be able to send any additional money and so on and so forth. Again, we are going to start receiving those, and I had one of them this morning. Any questions? Knowing that there is not going to be any specific answers more than what we have at this point. Any general questions, comments, help from anybody else who is on right now? So there's a question. It says, what if we have asked for no cost time extension? We haven't received it. Well, again, if we don't receive it in the next couple of days, and if there's a shutdown, the government is not going to answer any correspondences, and technically the government employees are not working. So that's what the answer is. If we haven't received it before shutdown, and if there is shutdown, we have to wait till the shutdown is over. That's the answer to that question. And here, Denise has a message in the chat that we are waiting for specific directions. Any questions? Okay, I guess the issue is very clear. Kelly, do you want to give an update on the proposal side, please?
Sure, absolutely. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So good morning, everybody. I wanted to start out today by talking about some submission system reminders and deadlines that are coming in the very near future. The first one I want to talk about is Science CV. Just as a reminder, I know we've talked about it, but it's been a while. Use of Science CV for biographical sketches and current and pending support will go into effect for new proposals due on or after Monday, October 23rd. This means that the fillable PDF forms cannot be used after 5:00 p.m. on Friday, October 20th. So any submissions on Monday, October 23rd, please make sure you use Science CV for both biographical sketches and current and pending support documents. I provided a link here that has more information and includes frequently asked questions. You're going to see some links throughout this slide deck this morning, but please be aware that Perry will be sending this out to everybody, so you'll receive this probably this afternoon. Usually is when Perry does it. The second,
we can't see the slide deck.
You can't see the slide deck. Okay.
No, we see you.
Okay, let me try this again. Oh, you know why? Let's see. Let's try it again then. Thank you for telling me. Okay, can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, let me go back then one slide. The FastLane decommissioning. I'm sorry about that, everyone. So FastLane is going to be decommissioned in favor of research.gov. Again, I know we talked about this also, but it's been a little bit of time. So FastLane letters of intent, proposals, and supplemental funding requests will remain accessible until Friday, September 29th. This includes all proposals submitted to NSF via grants.gov before November 18th, 2022. This is all information directly from their website. Submitted and in-progress letters of intent, proposals, and supplemental funding requests will not be transferred to FastLane or from FastLane. So please make sure you download them prior to September 29th if you wish to maintain copies. So that's really important information to keep in mind. And then there's also some reminders from FastLane. The last day to submit file updates and budget revisions is Friday, September 29th. So that's in 2 days, 5:00 our time. Note that the proposal file updates and budget revisions must be submitted in the same system that the proposal was submitted in. Again, another reminder, the last day to access the Fastlane homepage is Friday, September 29th, this time at 11 p.m. Eastern, which is 8 p.m. Pacific. Beginning on September 30th, you're going to be redirected to research.gov. Access to Fastlane proposal review and panelist functions will be removed from research.gov, and links to decommissioned Fastlane functionality will be removed. So basically, on September 30th, it's all research.gov. So please keep that in mind moving forward. Again, I've included a link that has this information as well. And this last slide regarding research.gov is just helpful information about that system. Before I move on to the next topic, does anybody have any questions about any of these submission system changes? And Perry, if you can do me a favor, I can't see the chat in the mode that I'm in. So if there are any questions, if you could let me know, that would be great.
No questions yet.
Okay, we'll continue then. Thank you. So I wanted to take some time to also talk about outgoing subawards that are requested. Those are subawards that we are issuing to other institutions for our research. And that starts at the proposal phase. So one thing that I wanted to make really clear is that a subaward is for research that we are parsing out to another institution, a third party. Subawards are handled within SPO. We have delegation for those subawards. Subcontracts are agreements for services that are in support of the research. So a lot of things that we see for subcontracts would be data collection, data analysis, outreach to the community. Those all go through purchasing. For that reason, when you submit a subaward request on a proposal budget, we really do need to see a clear, detailed scope of work so that we can confirm that what you're proposing actually falls within the definition of a subaward. If UC Davis is a sub on another project, we want to make sure we have a clear description of the UC Davis scope of work so that we can determine the correct indirect cost rate application. The reason this is really important are a couple of reasons. The first is that if we are not actually doing research, so a subaward, the personnel from the other institution cannot be a co-PI on our proposal. So that's one reason. The other reason has to do with budget considerations. As you may know, indirect cost rates are only applied to the first $25,000 of a subaward. They're applied to the whole amount of a subcontract. So as you can imagine, if we improperly classify something as a subaward, and we realize later on that it's actually a subcontract, maybe we didn't have the complete scope of work, it can have major implications to your budget. I also want to add that this is an auditable finding. So if we are doing a contract, let's say with NIH, and we improperly classify somebody as a sub recipient on a subaward, and it really should have been a subcontract, they technically can deobligate the funds for that sub. And then we could potentially be out a lot of money. So it's really important at the proposal phase that we have as much information as possible so we can make an accurate determination to avoid complications and delays at the award phase when we have to get a new budget. I also want to let everybody know, a lot of people have questions. If I give you all this information at time of proposal, why then at subaward phase are you asking for that information again? We do that because there are often changes to those documents between the time that something is proposed and the time that something is awarded. And then sometimes even after time of award, there could be adjustments as well. So we want to make sure that at the subaward stage, we have as much up-to-date information as possible. Does anybody, before I go on, does anybody have any questions about subawards at the proposal phase and why it's so important to have a detailed scope of work?
I don't see any questions, but I would like to make a comment in this area, the difference between subaward and subcontract, as you explained it, and the effect of it on F&A. Please note that F&A doesn't drive these things. No, F&A doesn't decide if something is subaward or subcontract. Once we know something is either subaward or subcontract, the proper F&A applies. The reason I am saying that is that more and more we see situations to basically, frankly, to save on F&A, something which is subcontract is being argued as subaward. That won't work. We are working on a couple of those issues right now. And the PIs are not going to be happy, but that's how it is. We have to go with proper definition of sub-awards and subcontracts. Whatever the F&A is, so be it. That's not in our control. So that's really important to emphasize. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Kelly.
thank you, Ahmad. That is a big issue these days, so I appreciate that clarification. Okay, so the final topic I want to bring to everybody's attention also deals with subawards, and it's a new NIH requirement specifically geared toward international subrecipients on their grants. So any subaward rather that's issued for an NIH grant is going to be subject to this requirement. Effective January 1st for the NIH policy that was just updated, all international subrecipients must provide access to copies of all lab notebooks, all data, and any and all documentation that supports the research that's described in the progress reports. And that information must be provided to the primary recipient with a frequency of no less than once per year and in alignment with the timing requirement for the RPPR submission. So basically what that means is when those reports are submitted to us, if we are indeed the primary recipient of the funding, they have to provide all of that documentation to us. It can be provided electronically, so that's helpful. To that end, UC Davis will be updating all existing international subawards from NIH to include that requirement. No action is required on the part of the department or PI. We're going to take care of it administratively in SPO, so that will not be an impact administratively for you. But I do want to bring it to your attention because it does impact the PI's subaward monitoring responsibilities, because the PIs for each NIH project that has international subs is now going to have responsibility for ensuring that that documentation is in fact provided and it supports the RPPR submission. And they're going to have to maintain that documentation for audit purposes for a period of 3 years beyond the final financial report submission. So we've added that to our website under the subaward monitoring requirements. We've updated the subrecipient commitment form, so the subs should be aware of this requirement. If for some reason the updated subrecipient commitment form is not used, we're going to make sure that the letter of institutional support that is provided at the proposal stage includes an acknowledgement of this requirement. So we're really taking steps to make sure everybody understands it from the get-go at the time of proposal. But you will see reminders probably in review comments. You'll probably receive an update or an updated comment rather from the subawards team when one of those international subawards is requested. So please just keep it in mind. We want to make sure everybody is aware of this new monitoring requirement, again, specific to NIH international subrecipients. Does anybody have any questions about this requirement? No? Okay, well, thank you for your time this morning. If you ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out directly to me or to the general proposals email or the subawards email. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Grace, do you want to give updates on the award side, please?
Sure, I do not have a slide deck because I only have 2 points and both refer or have to do with prior approvals. So one, in general, unless the prior approval requires AOR signature or AOR submission, the PI should submit the prior approval request to the sponsor directly and then forward the confirmation to SPO, and we can update CAIUS as necessary. But SPO doesn't have to submit every prior approval request unless the AOR is required to do so. Okay, so just so you know, feel free to take care of prior approval requests within the department just between the PI and the sponsor. You don't have to get SPO involved unless we have to be, as required by sponsor guidelines for AOR approval. Second thing is, if there is a shutdown starting next week and you have a prior approval request that would be required to be submitted during that time, please do submit it. Okay, don't wait until the shutdown is over before doing something. So the prior approval request probably will not be read or processed during this time, but we don't want to be late on it. So please do submit the request as you would, even if there wasn't a shutdown. And that's all, just those 2 items on prior approvals.
Thank you, Grace. Let's see, James, I know you talk about a couple of things, but I'm sure you have other things to talk about too now.
Well, thanks so much. Good morning, everyone. I guess I just had a couple of comments related to the potential shutdown that we're looking at. There's been a lot of questions and everything coming through. One, I just want to let everyone know that the CGA cash team has been doing their utmost to pull down as much cash as we can, as expenses post. Right now we don't have the September payroll on the books. Probably won't have that before the shutdown occurs. But anyway, our controller has looked at the cash flow issue, and as of right now, kind of thinking about the chart that Ahmad shared with a month or so, we can weather that storm. If it goes longer and longer and longer, things can change. So it'll be in flux a bit. So if any of your PIs or anyone are wondering, what about the cash? Don't right now, it's not a specific concern. The other thing I just wanted to mention, I was on a call yesterday with my counterparts at the other campuses, and part of our discussion, of course, had to do with the shutdown. One point is, or one question had to do with us paying our subaward invoices. We need to go ahead and keep processing our subaward payments. So don't, uniform guidance requires us to do that. So don't put those in your desk and plan to do them after the shutdown. If it happens, which seems quite likely at this point, but still go ahead and process those payments. We're hoping other institutions will also abide by the regs and pay us when we submit our invoices to them. So that's just a couple of points. I don't have anything beyond shutdown. It seems to be the big topic on everyone's mind.
Okay, thank you.
And I see some questions here from Lindsay. Yes, we're still going to communicate with our sponsors that we have. We'll probably be doing it in the next month or so, so that they know there's kind of this change in place. So there may be some, and it's kind of a great perfect storm happening, I suppose, with the timing of the transition, and with any luck, we're through the shutdown. But can we talk about deadlines for cleaning up negative balances for conversions? Sure.
Just a reminder on when we need to get that done by.
Is Francisco still on? Did he drop? So what's going to happen is if I don't have those deadlines, the cutover dates still, but we can, I can find out, I can double check with Francisco, but basically if there are negative balances, my understanding is the migration on those projects won't happen systematically. It'll have to be a manual setup in Aggie Enterprise once we go live. So it's really in everyone's best interest to get rid of your negative balances ahead of the transition. Again, I don't have that date. I'm if any of my folks might have that cutover date handy, if you want to throw that in the chat, but we're doing, we're doing our, oh, there we go. Thank you. Doesn't really show up on here. But it's kind of that late November, November 20-ish, I think is about where the data is going to start coming over. So, it's a big initiative on all your parts, trying to get your accounts all cleaned up, getting rid of your overdrafts, getting rid of especially the negative balances. Negative budgets are a problem. We're doing our best to get our, we have some old closeouts we're still trying to get cleaned up, as well as trying to keep the award processes, like the award setups and amendments, keep those all rolling through so that we have as clean a cutover as possible. There will undoubtedly be some manual, steps that we're going to have to do come January when we're in the system. We're just trying to do the best to minimize those.
James, this is Perry. I'm looking at Francisco's full presentation, and he has the date of November 21st to clear all negative budgets with the exception of leave assessment and usage.
Okay, good. Thank you, Perry. Yeah. I was thinking it would be right about there.
Okay, anything else?
Yeah, no, right. Clinical trials kind of follow a separate logic and path and everything. As you know, those basically operate in negative positions on the books. Alyssa, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, just I wanted to check in on what the process time is looking like for high risk cost transfer requests. I submitted one August 23rd, and it was non-salary. It was for some travel expenses, and I haven't heard anything back, and I sent in a little follow-up like, hey, can I get a status update? And I just like to understand a little bit like when I can expect to get that addressed, especially because it has an I'm trying to clear an overdraft. So
yeah, oh yeah. Did you submit that to CGA compliance, or did you which
yeah, let me just pull up let's see.
So generally we try to turn these around within a week or so. It depends, if we've got all the documentation we need, it goes the right path and we're ready to go, then we can do it pretty quickly. If we need to do a bunch of, follow-up communications because it's missing some details or whatever, then that of course can stretch it out. Alyssa, why don't you just send me a quick email, or maybe forward me the one you got, and I can follow up with the team and see if they had some issues that were.
Yeah. Okay, great. I'll do that. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, anything else for James? If not, Perry, you want to talk about the training opportunities?
Hello, folks. So upcoming training opportunities from the Sponsor Programs Office. We have a class tomorrow, and it is Cayuse SP Awards and Post-Award Actions. And I'm going to put some info in the chat first. Kelly had mentioned that I would send out the slide deck, but I'm not going to be sending out the slide deck. I will be putting the slide deck on the website that I just put in the chat, and it should be available tomorrow, first thing. So that's where you'll find today's slide decks. And then I'm going to put all the upcoming classes. Oops. Yeah. And where you can register for them. So just to work through them, as I said, we have a class tomorrow. We also have a new Cayuse 424 workshop that'll take place on October 19th. That's a Thursday from 9 to 11. And it just takes you step by step with little tips and tricks for working in Cayuse 424. And you can sign up by writing SPO training at ucdavis.edu, and I'll send you the Zoom link for that. All these classes are via Zoom. As I mentioned, we have the Cayuse SP Awards and Post-Awards Actions class tomorrow from 1 to 4. We also have a class on Thursday, October 5th. It's a 2-hour class on using the OR budget templates. So we tried this class out last year. It was well received, so we're now offering it on a regular basis. So if you find the OR budget templates to be a little intimidating, if you have questions about the use of them, this class is very helpful. It walks you through so you feel confident in using them for future proposals. And then we have an awards lab that'll take place on October 12th from 9 to 12. And that lab is designed to practice the content that you learn in the 2 awards classes, understanding the awards process and Cayuse SP awards and post-award actions. And at the bottom of my entry in the chat is registration links where you can find all those other classes besides the workshop. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Perry.
I see a raised hand, Katie.
I was just wondering, is there somewhere on your guys' website that lists all of these different email addresses that everybody references, like awards@ucdavis.com, subawards@ucdavis.com? Whenever I'm trying to email somebody, I never know which email address is the correct one to use.
In all of our my class presentations, I have a list of them so I can send them to you, Katie. I'm not sure if we have them listed on our website though. Do we? Terry's nodding his head.
It is on our website. It's
just put
under
that in the
contact
chat.
us.
Oh, there it is.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to find the link to put it in there for the OR ones with the different contacts. Hang on just a second and I'll put that in there.
Yeah, Sal put it in the chat, Terry. Thank you, Sal. Back to you, Ahmed.
Okay, thank you very much. So any other questions about anything you heard today or anything else you want to ask questions? Again, remember, these sessions are supposed to be time for our colleagues from departments to ask questions, exchange information, and so on and so forth.
I actually had one more question. This is
Go
for
ahead.
James. I just thought of it.
Corey, I saw your camera come on and I thought, oh, this one's for me.
Yeah, I apologize. It just popped in my head. I was thinking for requesting central campus funds for postdocs, GSRs, junior specialists. I was in a meeting with our dean's office last week, and they talked about how the way we're going to receive those funds is by adding like an income object consolidation to our grant accounts that will be receiving refunds. Is that true?
No, that's not accurate. When that goes through, we just basically give you a credit. There's
Okay.
like a rebate object that we use. I forget what they are. But you just get credits in your wherever that salary was sitting.
Okay. All right.
We'll just put in whatever BIA calculates out as the approved credit.
Okay. And then I guess my department, we plan GSRs quarter to quarter. So I'm just wondering if I inaccurately project how many GSRs are going to be on an award, will you match that up with the spreadsheet that we submit? I know that's a tough question. So if I didn't put a GSR on there, are we going to receive a central campus funds, or does it have to match the spreadsheet?
Denise, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, but the spreadsheet. So the way I don't process. The way it's going is it's coming in. And Denise, I don't know if who all exactly is looking at that initial kind of approval that the Office of Research is doing. Then it comes over for me to take a look just at the funding source, to look at the accounts. One concern I was trying to mitigate is us throwing big credits into accounts that cause credit balances, and then we've got problems with our letter of credit draws and everything. So that's really all I'm doing, is making sure that those numbers seem to be adding up okay. And then BIA actually does the entry, and I believe that they're just going to take really what's on that spreadsheet and apply that, not try to project any
Right. So this is Denise. You should only be including, expected expenses on the workbook. And I know there's a fine line between projection and expected. They have to be reviewed and approved by your assistant dean. And we are operating under the assumption that that information is accurate. And so when James processes the credit, if we determine later that you should not have received the credit, we'll go back to your assistant dean to adjust it. But James is not processing those credits until expenses post so that we don't have cash draw issues.
Okay. And then to follow up on that, is there an urgency to get these submitted prior to going to enterprise?
No. I mean, if you need to have the credits before the transition, yes. But if you're submitting it now for expenses that are going to happen in the winter, the spring quarter, James probably won't process them until those expenses hit.
Okay. And then I had one more question. If an award's already ended and we haven't submitted these workbooks yet or spreadsheets, how does the credit work for that? I'm just thinking if I have an award that ended, June 30th, 2023, and then, I feel, yeah.
The guidelines explicitly state that the credit is only available for active awards. So my understanding would be we would not be able to offer the reimbursement for something that has closed, but James can certainly correct me if my understanding is wrong.
It would be problematic to be trying to do that.
Okay. Yeah, because I just feel like the workbook just got correct, at least for letters and sciences. Like I just got notice from.
But the workbook has been out there since February. I know LNS wanted edits to it, but it was available. I would say maybe you should reach out to me directly to talk about the award that has been closed, and James and I can work with you to see what's possible.
Okay. No, it was just a general question because I'm just now creating all of these workbooks for, our grants and psychology and the Center for Mind and Brain. So since I was here, I wanted to pose the question in case I run into that issue. And I guess if I do, I will send you an email, Denise.
That would be great. Thank you. We
Thank you.
do all that we can to make sure that we make you whole
Appreciate it.
based on what's allowable under the federal rules.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions about, again, anything that you want to discuss, as long as it's regarding research administration, I suppose? Linda has a question.
Hi, thank you, Amit. And I have a question, which is, I wasn't too sure which unit, like awards or proposal or CGA, can answer my question. Like we have a major sponsor, which is usually on their RFP, they specifically said that the indirect allowable is for instance, 30% TFFA. So which means 30% of total federal awarded amount. Our PI was heavily budgeted equipment and also GSR with the tuition as well as a multi-sub award on that budget proposed. And then we use a SPO template, which is automatically calculated which indirect is less to complement with sponsor requirement, because the sponsor always said 30% of TFFA and your institutional federally approved indirect, whatever is less. So based upon our situation, which is have a heavily equipment and then subaward involved, so then the calculation would be our federally multiplied total direct cost fully like 59.5 as a currently, or 57 in the past, which is a less indirect as a result. So we submitted a proposal with the fully federally approved indirect cost, and it's got awarded with that amount. However, after 5 years of the award is ended, the PI has rebudgeted equipment, which is they didn't use the equipment, and then their subaward, like we deobligated the subaward amount. Turns out the sponsor calculated the whole indirect cost incurred on that total expense, which is it's greater than 30% of total federally awarded amount. So then they question us, in that circumstance, who is responsible for that shortage?
I think James would answer it, but the short answer is the PI and department.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead,
Linda, I mean,
James.
those are tricky. Those are tricky situations, right? Especially if the plan doesn't proceed the way it was initially, expected to. So all that rebudgeting is really you and the PI understanding where you are with the indirects, and in coordination, in conjunction with my folks, so that we can be sure that we are applying the right rate. We have periodic reviews where we should be looking at, oops, which is the lesser of those two approaches. But you're at the end of the project. Maybe we can talk offline and figure out where we are on that. But in general, any changes to the project as you're going through it, y'all need to be on top of what those impacts are going to be, whether it's just the simple case where we have an award under MTDC and you're moving budget, rebudgeting from I don't know, equipment into supplies as allowable, but that's part of what we're looking for you to be monitoring and making adjustments for.
So which means it's on the department's responsibility as account manager to always look at those kind of things when things going, like for instance, if PI didn't use the, or they use the budget, or use the equipment, those kind of a sensitive expense, I'm saying sensitive, which is the equipment, subaward, GSR tuition, those kind of things. If they a little bit off what we budgeted, then we have to always calculate it to see which indirect is the lesser incurred.
As you're going through the project, bottom line, you and the PI have the knowledge of what's happening with the project. Centrally, we don't really know what the game plan is, where you are exactly. We just see the expenses that are hitting the books. It's especially when it gets to that tipping point where one rate may actually, the methodology may need to change because the project is going down a different path than originally intended and showed up in the budget. But again, Linda, there aren't a huge number of these, TFFA or total cost awards out there. So it's a little bit of a unique.
Looking at it from another general point of view, really, the issue might be, you might want to think about it in the following terms. I know your specific question has to do with which rate is smaller, but really the general answer to your question is that, there is a budget and there is expenditure. F&A applies at the time of expenditure, whatever it is. For example, James mentioned, if the budget has a lot of cost for equipment and properly is rebudgeted to move equipment cost to supplies, then something which wasn't subject to indirect suddenly becomes subject to indirect. That's why it is. When that money is spent for supplies, it's subject to indirect, period. So the department and the PI, they are on top of that. That's how it works. That's the general rule.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, James.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ahmed.
No problem. Any other questions? These are really good discussions to have. No? Well, people are leaving one by one. We were over 200 people here like 10 minutes ago. We are down to 185 and it's 9:40 a.m. So if there's nothing else, we can go back and serve the campus that we serve. Okay? See you next time. And again, please remember that October is our last forum for the year. We don't meet in November and December typically. Thank you. Have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.